Right, David. And so the notable thing here is that Caroline Ellison, who is the co-CEO or the CEO of Alameda Research, and Gary Wang, who is the co-founder of FTX, have been cooperating, or they are cooperating in the case against Sam Bankman-Fried. So this is pretty interesting. The Securities and Exchange Commission is doing it. And there are also, they apparently have, there are federal charges as well. So that's pretty interesting. That's a new development. And of course, this is happening just as Sam Bankman-Fried is on a plane coming back to the United States to face his own set of federal charges.
Two execs from Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto companies plead guilty. SBF himself is now back to the US.
I understood that Alameda's FTX accounts had significantly negative balances in any particular currency. It means that Alameda was borrowing funds that FTX customers had deposited into the exchange. Ellison said that according to the Bloomberg Markets and the Finance YouTube channels, two top associates of the disgraced crypto executive Sam Bankman-Fried have pleaded guilty to the criminal charges and are cooperating with the US prosecutors leading the investigations into FTX collapse. Jonah Ossinger reports on the Bloomberg television. Before we dive into the video, subscribe the Bitcoin Thinking channel and turning on the right notifications button. Starts the topics, guys. Caroline Ellison, founder and the former CEO of the Sam Bankman-Fried trading firm's Alameda Research, was hit with criminal charges in New York, along with a civil complaint by the US Securities and Exchange Commissions. The development confirmed speculations that Ellison, who is also Bankman-Fried's ex-girlfriend, and others in the Bankman-Fried's circles were working with the federal prosecutors who are investigating with the FTX collapse. US Attorney Damian Williams said on the Wednesday that the Ellison and the FTX co-founders Gary Wang had pleaded guilty to the various charges, including fraud, and are cooperating with the government. SEC fraud charges prevented Caroline Ellison and Gary Wang from any further fundraising. The stunning collapse of one of the crypto's most prominent firms has quickly morphed into the legal battle pitting former executive and the ex-romantic partners against one another. The last week, as FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried was being extracted to the United States from the Bahamas, two of his former businesses and the partners pleaded guilty to the multiple charges of the fraud and the conspiracy. I am truly sorry for what I did. Ellison told the court I knew that was wrong. Ellison told the court that Alameda had a virtually unlimited borrowing facility in the FTX, and that he should know that the exchange would need to be used customer funds to pay financial loans to the hedge fund. She also agreed to keep the two firms' unusually close relationship hidden from the investors and the customers. Former July October's, and she told the court Ellison agreed with the Bankman-Fried and others to prove materially misleading financial statements to the Alameda lenders and prepare the balance sheets that conceals the extent of the Alameda's borrowing, according to the transcripts from the plea hearings held on December 19th and recently announced. Ellison has been charged with 7 criminal counts, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. She and the Bankman-Fried were closing businesses associated who briefly dated. The SEC allegations tell the stories of the Bankman-Fried controls of the Alameda, of which he owns 90%. The points him as the mastermind of the schemes to bring large inflows of the cash into the firm by the leveraging FTX customers' funds and the manipulating trading of the FTT tokens to boost its value. Sam Bankman-Fried was extradited from the Bahamas to the US to face charges ranging from wire fraud to the campaign finance fraud. Almost as soon as the plane took off, the US Attorney of the Southern District of New York announces that Alameda's Caroline Ellison and the FTX Gary Wang had pleaded guilty and were cooperating with the prosecutors. NLW breaks down everything we learned in the last 24 hours. FTX co-founder Gary Wang has also cooperated with the investigative agencies. Given the extent of the Gary influence at the FTX, he would be a more unfavorable witness for the Sam Bankman-Fried than Caroline Ellison. He also previously pleaded guilty to helping create the underlying code that would allow Alameda to maintain unlimited lines of the credit on FTX and several other privileges. Sam Bankman-Fried is still struggling to prove his clean lines. However, that seems to be the more difficult when his two key recipients, Ellison and Gary Wang, have respectively pleaded guilty. In my opinion, Gary's guilty plea might be more difficult to the refute than Ellison to the Sam Bankman-Fried. A recent Bloomberg article analyzed that compares to the former Alameda Research CEO Ellison's FTX co-founders, Gary Wang is much more important to the FTX. This makes him a more dangerous Sam Bankman-Fried witness. The Sam Bankman-Fried had previously blamed the Ellisons from the collapse of the FTX, but this defense was weakened by the Gary Wang's plea agreement. I think it would be hard for the Sam Bankmans to claim that he did not know what Gary Wang was doing. It would be very defective of these two co-witnesses testified against him at the trial. Sarah Powell, a former US attorney in New York, said that Gary Wang and the SBF have a very close relationship. Gary Wang and the Sam Bankman-Fried first met at the math camp in high school, and they were roommates at the MIT. They started developing FTX while sharing a home in the Berkeley, California, with Gary Wang writing the code of the exchange, which launched in 2019. The two lived together in Hong Kong and most recently in the Bahamas. Sam Bankman-Fried owns 90% of Alameda shares, while Gary Wang owns only 10% of the Alameda shares. Gary served as Chief Executive Officer of Alameda until Ellison was appointed Chief Executive late last year. As alleged by the CFTC, Gary helped create the underlying code that would allow Alameda to maintain an unlimited line of credit on FTX, and Gary also helped create other avenues that gave Alameda an unfair advantage in trading, translating the platform, including fast execution time. Legal experts say that money transfers to the Alameda can wholly be explained as mismanagements rather than the fraud, and that the testimony of his former colleagues could be damaging to the Sam Bankman-Fried. Earlier news in December 2022, former CEO of Alameda and the FTX launching pleaded guilty to the criminal charges brought by the US prosecutors and the fraud charges brought by US CFTC respectively. The US Securities and Exchange Commissions accused Ellison and Gary Wang of defrauding FTX investors, and both complied with the settlement. That's it for today. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Bitcoin Thinking channel and turning on the red notifications button. See you next time.